Coming up on Mountain News this morning, we continue our coverage of yesterday's primary election races, including the most talked about race in the state, the race for governor.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News This Morning.
Good morning, I'm Taylor Upchurch. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd. Let's check in with Brandon Robinson for a look at your weather this morning. Brandon, how does it look out there today?
Well, I talked about it yesterday, but if you're expecting to see cooler weather like we did see yesterday, you're out of luck this morning because the warm front already draped across parts of the state. Let's go to the cameras here as we head out the door this morning. UVA-wise, pretty quiet, not too much going on. A few stars and maybe a few clouds in the sky this morning. Up on top of the mountain, you can see just a few clouds early, and then things have cleared up quite nicely. On US 119, Whitesburg Pine Mountain, 68 Monticello, 58 here in Hazard, so you can kind of see where that warm front is draped this morning. That's a pretty big difference from this time yesterday, anywhere between 3 and about 15 degrees depending on where you are. Day planner for today, temperatures climb quickly into the 80s by 12 o'clock and maybe into the upper 80s by this afternoon. I'll have the rest of the forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. Taylor?
All right, thank you, Brandon. Governor Matt Bevin will be on the Republican ticket again in November. The governor did not hold an election party. Instead, he chose to address the media afterwards. He came away with nearly 53% of the Republican vote. He says the next 6 months will be interesting, but he's confident he'll win re-election.
While I am confident that we will win because the market difference is going to be so obvious to people, in no way, shape, or form is that a given, not even remotely. And as I said, it will, I believe, be ours to lose. Could we lose it? We could. Do I think we will? I don't. I really don't. But the reality is, as soon as we assume it's in the bag and we take our foot off the gas, that's the beginning of the end for people politically.
Governor Bevin says he expects the president to come to Kentucky to help him campaign at some point. And we now know who will face off in the November election, Matt Bevin and Democratic candidate Andy Beshear. Bevin and Beshear are no strangers, battling over pension reform and abortion laws over the past couple of years. Beshear took the stage at the C2 Event Center in Louisville after he won the vote. He talked about solving the opioid crisis, education, and he took a swing at Bevin.
He's wrong on virtually every single issue, and he knows if he doesn't distract us, that he will lose. He is bullying our teachers, our first responders, and our social workers.
Beshear says the other Democratic candidates on the ticket, Adam Edelin and Rocky Atkins, gave him their support for November. And after campaigning hard in eastern and western Kentucky in the rural areas, Rocky Atkins was not able to secure enough votes to beat Andy Beshear. Atkins basically swept eastern Kentucky, the place he calls home. He held the lead for most of the night until western parts of the state began to check in. Atkins encouraged his supporters to stand by Beshear.
So I want Andy Beshear to know, and his family to know, that I'll be traveling Kentucky. And I'll be trying my best to help Andy Beshear as we go through these next months, over these next weeks.
Rocky received about 32% of the vote, coming in about 24,000 votes short of Beshear and 15,000 more than Adam Edelin. And former Kentucky Auditor Adam Edelin gave his concession speech last night around 8 o'clock, telling his crowd of about 150 supporters that there was not a path forward for him to become governor. Edelin also looked to the future, talking about his goal of helping to grow eastern Kentucky through his work with bringing solar panel farms to Pike County.
Look forward to returning to my business career, but there's a lot of good things we can do, and I think there's real impact that we can have in the private sector, and certainly diversifying the economy in eastern Kentucky is a really important part of that.
Edelin is a co-developer in the project that is expected to bring 200 construction and 50 permanent jobs to the area. And State Representative Robert Goforth carried much of eastern and southern Kentucky. The underdog in the Republican race says challenging the governor was worth the effort.
I'm going to try to work very closely, as close as the governor will allow me to give input on what I think we could do better, and hopefully he will listen to some of that input.
A former aide to Senator Mitch McConnell will face a Floyd County political veteran in November for Attorney General. Daniel Cameron won the Republican nomination, defeating State Senator Will Schroeder. Both candidates battled over their conservative credentials. Cameron will face former Kentucky Attorney General Greg Stumbo, who held the office from 2004 to 2008. Stumbo was unopposed in the Democratic primary. Kentucky has not elected a Republican Attorney General in 70 years. State Treasurer and Eastern Kentucky native Allison Ball knows who she will face in the fall. Banker Michael Bowman of Louisville won the Democratic nomination. Bowman touted his experience as a bank officer managing a multi-million-dollar financial portfolio and his work with local government. He beat business owner Josh Mers. Ball, who's from Prestonsburg, was unopposed in the Republican primary. And in the days leading up to the election, Secretary of State Allison Lundergan Grimes predicted a 12.5% voter turnout for yesterday's primary. She also gave Kentuckians a challenge, asking them to, quote, prove her wrong by going out and voting. The unofficial Kentucky primary election vote totals show the actual turnout was indeed higher, coming in at almost 20%. You can see all of the election results on our website, WYMT.com. And the polls closed early Tuesday evening, but that did not mean election officials were finished for the day. They started working early Tuesday morning and continued until late in the night, counting your votes. However, working at the polls is not known to be an exciting job. Those officials say they have to get creative to pass the time. Linda Rose says this is the perfect job for her.
So I'm all gung-ho about, people need to vote and exercise that right and privilege, really.
Linda has worked as an election official since 2008. She says each year she and her co-workers do crossword puzzles and eat to pass the time. Officials say if you would like to become an election official, you can visit your county clerk's office to apply. Thanks for getting your day started with us here on Mountain News this morning. Coming up, lawmakers in California are making changes to how schools operate within the state.
I hope you're ready, because ready or not, the heat and humidity move in today. I'll have your See Me forecast in about 3 minutes.